The Giants have just done it. They've tied their San Francisco era record for most wins in a season with 103, and there's still 5 games to go. They kept their 2 game lead over the Dodgers. It was not an easy win, but they were able to beat the Diamondbacks. So we'll get into the win, the significance of it, and also some injury updates. And also, how about Camilo Doval throwing 102 miles an hour en route to his first save of his career in the ninth inning last night? So all of that next on today's Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants Baseball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. And remember that Locked On Giants is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked On Giants. This episode is brought to you by Spotify Green Room. Download the app and join me on Sunday toward the end of the game, the season finale. Hopefully we don't have a game 163. But anyway, join me then to get in on the action. So coming up on today's show, we have a lot to talk about. First of all, a huge win for the Giants. They're playing the Arizona Diamondbacks. These are games they're supposed to win. But at this stage in the season, take anything for granted. Any team can beat any other team on any given night. And I think we saw some of that last night with the D-backs really giving the Giants a run for their money for most of the game. It was a lot more tense than it probably should have been, but the Giants ultimately prevailed, and with the Dodgers winning 2-1 against the Padres, it was a critical win because otherwise you're looking at a 1-game lead with 5 to play as opposed to 2. So, each and every game is absolutely critical at this point. I'm kind of assuming the Dodgers aren't going to lose. It just seems that way, although from their perspective, it seems that way as well, that the Giants aren't going to lose. And that's why, obviously, you'd rather be 2 games ahead at this stage than 2 games behind. So the Giants have a clear and distinct advantage here in the National League West, and they just won their 103rd game. Let's just take a moment to appreciate the significance of that. They have tied the San Francisco era record for most wins in a season, tying, I believe, the 1962 team and the 1993 team. That team in the 60s lost in the World Series in 7 games to the Yankees. And in 93, they didn't make the playoffs with 103 wins because they didn't have wildcard teams at that point, and they were edged out by a team that won 1 more game. But this year, they're obviously going to the playoffs, but there's no guarantee they're going to win the division, even though they have 103 wins. But, in a lot of ways, that's not surprising given what we know about the Dodgers. Like, coming into the year, I was talking about how they may exceed 110 wins, and they're going to get close. But the amazing part is that the Giants have bested them so far. But there's season left, 5 games left for both teams, and the Giants are clinging to this 2-game lead. So, last night was absolutely huge. The Dodgers have played these games against the D-backs. The Giants, they're not lucky for getting to play the D-backs. They're just playing them at this stage, whereas the Dodgers played them to, match that total earlier in the season. So the fact that the Dodgers have a tougher remaining schedule just means the Giants have had a tougher schedule so far. So I don't know. The fact is the D-backs came into this game at 50 and 106. It's just been a disastrous season for them in Arizona, and the Giants have to take advantage. And so when there's all that pressure on you to win a game, it can be tense. And I really thought that last night's game felt tense. I think the crowd was tense. I think the team came out a little bit stiff, and there was tension right away. I mean, Logan Webb got into and out of trouble multiple times. There was a key error with LaMonte Wade Jr. playing first base, the first game without Brandon Belt, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But, what the first lineup without Brandon Belt looked like, as we suspected, LaMonte Wade Jr. did play first base, and the actual replacement, though, for Belt was in the outfield with Steven Duggar starting. So I actually thought that this first game without Belt had a lot of ripple effects that led to a lot of matchups that weren't ideal. And so the loss of Belt was kind of on display last night with all the moves that they made and how they ended up with some not ideal matchups later in the game. But we'll talk about that later. I just want to emphasize that this was a tense game, and Logan Webb kind of got into and out of trouble. He wasn't necessarily attacking the zone as much as he was when he was at his very best during that awesome streak of allowing 2 runs or fewer. But Jose Alvarez had a nice inning in relief. Tony Watson allowed a home run, and Tyler Rogers had another bad outing. So this has been a streak of bad outings for Tyler Rogers, and let's see, he allowed 2 hits and a walk, and 2 runs came in to score in that outing. So just adding to the tension, because the Giants had a 5-1 lead, and then it was 5-2, 6-2 lead in the 8th inning with Rogers on the mound, and he made it interesting and allowed a couple of runs, and the D-backs, got the tying run, maybe even the go-ahead run to the plate. David Peralta hit a ball deep into the right center field gap that might have been a tying home run in a lot of other ballparks. But here it was just a deep flyout. So, what strikes me is just that these games are tense, and the Giants, I think it might serve them well potentially heading into, we know they're going to be at least in the wild card game, but even thinking about a division series potentially, just playing really tense games down the stretch, I think might help them. And specifically, it might help a guy like Camilo Doval, who came on to close out this game last night. And if he can get some experience with some high pressure late game situations down the stretch here, I think that could bode very well for him and for the Giants going into the postseason, because my goodness, is he nasty when he's on. He was out here throwing 102-mile-an-hour fastballs and just kind of dotting them. He didn't have excellent command, but he did attack the zone and got through the inning, allowing just 1 hit. But wow, he was really impressive. So coming up next, we're going to talk about, some injury updates. We're going to give you the latest on Brandon Belt. It is not great news. And then some other injuries in this game itself. Alex Dickerson and got a hit by pitches in this game, and both had x-rays. And then also Tommy LaStella came out of the game with a little bit of an injury. So we'll get into that next. But first, this episode is brought to you by Green Room. Green Room is the first social audio platform made for sports fans. The app is free to download, and once you're in, you can chat with me, other fans, athletes, and insiders in real time about your favorite team or sport. I'll be hosting rooms for Locked On Giants once a week. Yes, you can finally join in on the conversation you listen to here every day. Green Room is the perfect place to start or join conversations about the league. You'll have a chance to chat with me and might even have a chance to be featured on the Locked On Giants podcast through our Green Room conversations. Be sure to join me this Sunday. I'll be hosting a room towards the end of the game, and hopefully, we have something to celebrate. Maybe, honestly, I might do, if the Giants clinch before that, I might do a Green Room at that point in time, so look out for that. Go download the free Green Room app now, currently available on all iOS devices. Be sure to create a profile, link your Twitter, and join the MLB group for the latest league updates. Follow me at Ben Kaspick to be notified when my room goes live. I know you won't want to miss it. I'm planning to be live, like I said, maybe when the Giants clinch, if they clinch, towards the end of that game. I can't wait to hear everyone's thoughts on the Giants. See you there. Green Room, changing the way we talk sports. Let's see here. We're back and better than ever. All eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back to start another football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline.ag continues to be the number one source for everything football. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus. That's double your initial deposit just for signing up. Don't forget to use promo code NFL100. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. And hey, don't forget about postseason baseball. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. Bet online, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Bet online, your online sportsbook expert. Promo code Locked On. All right, as promised, we are going to talk about some of these injury updates. Unfortunately, the news on the captain, Brandon Belt, the self proclaimed captain, if you've missed that conversation, he declared himself the captain of the team. The performance on the field certainly warranted that title, but the whole thing was kind of a big joke. And he's just a goofy guy. And it's just really, it makes me sad that he sustained this injury at this point in time. He was absolutely on fire. Remember, he dedicated this season to his late grandmother who passed away about a month ago, and he just went on a tear after that. And he just looked like a man on a mission. He's heading to free agency, and he was looking to kind of go into free agency with a huge bang and maybe have a monster postseason and earn himself a lot of money. So, obviously it's not all about the money, and he's a team player and he wants to stay with the Giants, but it's just really sad. And the kind of update on Brandon Belt is that Andy Baggerly is reporting that it's going to be about 4 weeks for the bone to heal, and that's just an estimate, of course, but that's just for the bone to heal, and that says nothing about kind of rehabilitation and then getting back to game speed. So Kapler said that they're going to reevaluate him in a couple of weeks, but for now they don't have a timetable for his return. So being reevaluated in a couple of weeks, that obviously means he's out for at least a couple of weeks. He was put on the 10-day IL, which ends his regular season. He's not eligible to come back at all, which is obvious at this point. I'm telling you, it's going to be 4 weeks. So of course he's not coming back by the end of the regular season. But just to say he'll be reevaluated in a couple of weeks is really depressing, because the Giants, they have to even they have to be alive in a couple of weeks, even for that to be relevant at all. And I hope that it is, right? I hope that the Giants are still playing. He has a chance to be reevaluated, and maybe there's good news, and maybe he can start swinging a bat right then and there, and maybe they'll ramp it up, and maybe he'll come back and make a triumphant return like a true captain would, and help lead them to success in the late rounds of the playoffs and potentially a World Series. But it doesn't look good, and it's really a shame, and I feel extremely bad for Brandon Belt. And as I was alluding to earlier, this first game without him, I thought it led to some issues. So there was some question about whether it would be LaMonte Wade Jr. filling in at first base, or whether they might go with Chris Bryant, kind of interchangeably, those two, either Bryant at first and Wade in the outfield, or Wade at first and Bryant in the outfield. And I said I wasn't sure which defensive alignment they would prefer, and they clearly preferred Wade Jr. at first base and Bryant in the outfield. And mixed results. I think Bryant looked pretty solid in the outfield last night. He made some nice plays, but Wade Jr. kind of whiffed on a pickoff throw that led to the Diamondbacks scoring a run. It was just like right to his glove, a pickoff throw at first base, and he got some glove on it, but just didn't catch it. And it went all the way down the right field line into foul territory against the sidewall, and runner got all the way to third and then scored on a sac fly. So, that's obviously just a little bit of rust. I don't think that that's an ongoing concern. First play of the game, Wade Jr. did make a nice play at first base and a flip to Logan Webb. So we've seen Wade Jr. at first base. He has played there this season when Belt was out. but it does tell us something that against right-handed pitching, they're probably going to continue to go with Wade at first base as opposed to Bryant. But then, the other part of it is that Darren Ruff is supposed to maybe come back on Thursday, and we continue to hear good things about that he could be back on Thursday, and that's when Madison Bumgarner is going to start for the D-backs. So a lefty on the mound, and you don't want Wade, a left-handed hitter, at first base with a lefty on the mound. They're just not going to do that. I know some people push for things like that, but Ruff is just a monster when he's facing lefties, so makes a lot of sense for Ruff to be in there. So look for that to be a pretty darn good platoon, and Kapler even said, we have a fun little mix and match group now between Wade and Flores, and Ruff is right around the corner. I think we're going to be able to successfully plug a very difficult hole to fill. We've done it. He's right. They've done it in the past. And Flores, they aggressively pinch hit for Wade when a lefty came in relief for the D-backs. They used Flores right away, and I think it made sense given where they were in the game. It was tied, I think, at that point, and they're just going for the jugular no matter what inning it is. And Flores ended up having a nice game. So that would be huge if Flores can just continue to be a difference maker at the plate. But defensively, you're definitely losing something when it's Wade and Flores as opposed to Brandon Belt. So I just thought that there were several moments where it actually just led to non-ideal matchups. Like Flores had to face a righty at some point. Slater pinch hit for Yastrzemski, and then Slater ended up facing a righty late in the game. One of the big things about Brandon Belt being in the lineup is that they don't platoon him, and so it lets them kind of use their bench bats in other situations. So the fact that they had to use Flores so early meant that they couldn't use him at a later point. I get it. He did have some big at bats, but there were just a lot of at bats in this game where, their platoon kind of guys ended up having not the platoon advantage later in the game. Whereas I think if Belt was in there, they could have saved them for different moments that would have been a little bit more advantageous. Some of that had to do with Tommy La Stella coming out of the game with Achilles discomfort. So Kapler said, quote, he's been dealing with some discomfort in his Achilles for several days. He was working through it in Colorado, and it was kind of just bugging him today. I don't think he felt at risk in any way, but what I do think he felt was a little bit compromised. So that was part of it, because then Solano had to come in, and then they used that, so they kind of burned Solano, and then they used Solano's spot for the pitcher spot in the order. But anyway, it just wasn't their best game from a matchup perspective, and these guys didn't necessarily kind of deliver that knockout punch that you would be hoping for when they were put into some key situations. The Giants had a ton of chances to kind of blow this game open, but it never really happened. So coming up next, we'll continue that discussion. I just want to talk about how the Giants had so many opportunities and weren't able to deliver that knockout blow. Talk about Alex Dickerson a little bit, his status after getting hit by a pitch. Thairo Estrada, same thing, getting hit by a pitch and having x-rays. And then lastly, I do want to talk about the bullpen and kind of the hierarchy and how Camilo Doval closing out this game is quietly a really big deal for the San Francisco Giants down the stretch here. But first, did you know that Built Bar has so many delicious flavors? There's really something for everyone. When you talk to a Built Bar fan, they're definitely passionate about their favorites. We Locked On hosts have a group chat, and I cannot tell you how frequently we're debating our favorite Built Bar flavors because there are just so many options and they're all delicious. My personal favorite, it's hard for me to choose, but raspberry is a really delicious flavor. It's truly incredible to me how the Built Bars are able to taste like candy bars, but they come in with a healthy profile, and that's really important to me. I wouldn't be eating them if they didn't. 17 to 18 grams of protein, 130 to 180 calories, and just 4 to 5 grams of sugar. Amazing flavors, all tasty and all healthy. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off your next order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. All right, as promised, we're going to talk about the Giants wasting some opportunities and how I think that hits with runners in scoring position are overrated because the Giants had a lot of them, and it was just like they could not get that knockout punch, that knockout blow. They had so many hits, like with the bases loaded, they just kept hitting singles that were scoring just one run. So we'll talk about that for a second, but also the state of Tyro Estrada and Alex Dickerson, and then Camilo Doval and his just awesome showing in the ninth inning. But yeah, hitting with quote runners in scoring position is definitely to me something that is a little bit overhyped because the Giants had a lot of them and it didn't deliver that knockout punch. Someone on Twitter replied to me when I pointed out that hits with runners in scoring position continue to be overrated. They said, or then I said, home runs are always better. And he said, not when they're all solo home runs. But I beg to differ. I mean, first of all, why would they all be solo home runs? The Giants get on base about 33% of the time. That's obviously including home runs as being an on base event, even though, you don't actually stay on base. You get to come all the way around to score. But, if you're going to get a hit, I don't care. There's going to be runners on sometimes, and they're going to be solo home runs some other times. There's just no doubt the home run is the best possible offensive outcome all the time. And I think we saw it last night. You can get your hits with runners in scoring position, but when those are scoring one run, maybe, so the Giants had at least one hit with a guy on second base that didn't score a run. And then they had several hits with guys on second or second and third, and they were just getting one run at a time. So anyway, a big home run in that situation would have been preferred. It's just clear and obvious, but some people continue to think that home runs are not always the best possible offensive outcome when in fact they are. Should be, someone new to baseball has no difficulty understanding this concept that, oh, you get a run automatically, and if anybody's on base, they also get to score automatically. That's the best possible offensive outcome. So, it is not a bad thing at all that the Giants hit so many home runs. Hey, check out their record, 103 and 54. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that they now hit a lot of home runs, whereas when they were at their worst, they weren't hitting home runs at all. So, suspicious, suspicious. So anyway, Alex Dickerson and Tyro Estrada got hit by pitches. Dickerson on the left foot and Estrada on the hand. So, sensitive moment when Tyro Estrada goes down in a heap, much like Brandon Belt getting hit by a fastball on the hand. So he ended up staying in the game. Thankfully, it was his right hand, so his throwing hand. Guess it got him on the fingertips, Kapler said, but, scary stuff. And he just came back. He literally took Brandon Belt's spot on the roster. So it would have been a big blow to lose Tyro Estrada like that. I don't know exactly, you'd probably be seeing Jason Vossler or someone like that to take Estrada's spot. So their depth is being run a little bit thin when they lose Brandon Belt, just kind of a consequence of that. So, heading into the playoffs, hopefully this group can stay as is. I don't think they can afford too many more injuries before it really starts to take a toll, and certain guys you don't necessarily want to be starting may have to start. But anyway, both of those x-rays were precautionary. I guess Dickerson's actually wasn't, but the x-ray for him came back negative. And the last we heard, Estrada, we don't have the results yet, but they said that he was going to get x-rays as a precaution. So, he was able to stay in the game and continue to make throws. And so they assume he's fine, and I hope that he's fine as well. But anyway, the bullpen, kind of the last thing I want to talk about. We speculated yesterday about who was going to take over that kind of ninth inning with Jake McGee on the injured list. And I suspected it would be Dominic Leone. And there was we did a Q&A episode, and somebody, I want to give you credit, somebody asked about Camilo Doval being the ninth inning guy. And I'm big tones said Doval in the ninth. And correct. I mean, Doval came in that ninth inning and closed out this game. So good call on that. I said I think he has the potential to eventually get there even this season, but I didn't think they would do it right away, but they did. And I think a big part of that it was the bottom of the order coming up. And Kapler even said that choosing to go to Duvall over Leone in that situation had something to do with the bottom part of the order coming up, but also how well he's been throwing lately. And he just showed it again. I mean, his slider is a devastating pitch right now. A lot of people, I think, I think it's a little misguided saying, he doesn't trust his fastball and he's got to throw it more. Yes and no. I think part of it is that they think his slider is such a good pitch that he should throw it more often. I was just yesterday looking at pitch usage by Major League bullpens, and I noticed that the Tampa Bay Rays throw fastballs the least of any bullpen in the game. They only throw the fastball like 43% of the time, way less than half the time. And so the game is trending towards fewer fastballs and more breaking balls, and the Rays have a really good bullpen and they throw the fewest fastballs in the game. So we need to just kind of get used to that. Guys don't always just rely primarily on fastball anymore. And Doval, even though he throws 102, I think his slider is that good of a pitch where you're going to see it a lot of the time. But anyway, last night he did kind of rely more on the fastball, and it was really working for him. He was throwing, like I said, upwards of 100, hit 102, and then the slider was wipeout as well. So he was super impressive. He did give up a hit that was almost a home run, but Duvall and Kervin Castro emerging here in September as like really good bullpen arms could be a big deal for the Giants in the playoffs. So, look for them to continue to throw flames. I mean, Kervin Castro, not such a flamethrower, but a command artist with a good fastball, a good kind of breaking ball. I think it's a curveball is what he would call it. Nice kind of over the top action. But anyway, just really impressive stuff from those two. And Camilo Doval has quickly climbed the bullpen hierarchy. So that'll be something we continue to watch. Anyway, coming up tonight, it's another huge game. Obviously, the Giants taking on the D-backs in game 2 of this 3-game series. It's going to be Alex Wood against Merrill Kelly, another right-handed pitcher. So expect a similar lineup. See if they tweak things a little bit. Steven Duggar, like I said, was the one who ended up getting some playing time in place of Brandon Belt. We'll see. I had mentioned it could be Dickerson, it could be Duggar. And for, at least for yesterday, it was Duggar. So for the Dodgers, they are taking on the Padres. It's Max Scherzer against Ryan Weathers. And so obviously that's a matchup that favors the Dodgers on paper, as they had Buehler last night and then Scherzer tonight. It's pretty unfair, scary team, not a team you're necessarily going to want to face in the playoffs, but the Giants have played them well this year, and we shall see. Anyway, thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. You can follow me on Twitter at Ben Kaspick. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So please like, comment, and subscribe wherever it is that you're listening. Anyway, I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.